Okay, we're here today. My name is Mike McIntyre.
I'm Mike Jett.
And welcome to The Mike Check. This is going to be a show where we debate and get it straight. Where we will take the topics of the day, whether it be local or national in the black community, and we're going to try to debate and analyze and come to some type of conclusion about the issues of today. Couple ground rules we're going to do for this show so that everybody's aware. One of the things we want to do is we want to make sure we take everybody's opinion, analyze them, debate them, and make sure that we respect opinions, make sure that we seek the truth, and for sure we get an understanding about some of the opinions that we have out there. So, Brother Jett, you ready to get started?
Sure.
Okay, first topic today is going to be the Ray Rice incident. The NFL levied some stiff penalties for Ray Rice in a domestic abuse case. So what we're going to do is give you our opinion on those cases and get the debate started. Brother Jett, what do you say?
Well, I mean, it's a touchy subject. I'm kind of split on where I'm at as far as the right and wrong. I actually want to say on this, both sides are wrong in my eyes. What Ray Rice did to his then fiance, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was wrong. I mean that goes without saying. We don't condone that in our society. We need more from our professional athletes, and as it so happens, in our community, when you're a professional athlete or any kind of center of attention, you automatically become a mentor and a leader in the community. So we expect more from those people. But with that being said, I just think that it's a little wrong for the NFL to kind of govern on the fly. So we'll go back and forth about what I mean by that. But just to kind of summarize it, I think it's a case where two wrongs don't make a right.
Let's see. My check on this case would be pretty simple. You never hit a woman. When a man needs to hit a woman, he needs to get out the relationship. So in other words, before you get to the point where you hit somebody, I believe that at the point you're ready to hit them, that's when you retire. There's enough. I've had enough, and be done with it. So Ray Rice is completely 100% wrong. The NFL is a tricky situation, as you said. The NFL, in most respects, is a private organization. They have their rules. They have their employees. And they have this guy, which is the commissioner, that levies punishment out to their employees. I can't say that they're wrong. I believe their system is wrong. Their process is wrong. So whatever they did to Ray Rice is at their mercy. Other than short of violating the contract, if the NFL will violate his contract, they're wrong. If they didn't violate their contract and under collective bargaining, the commissioner can do whatever he wants to Ray Rice, then the commissioner will be right in levying whatever punishment he wants to. What we're going to try to do, I guess, is analyze, give our opinion, and as you said, you're kind of split in your decisioning. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to come down on the side of the commissioner was right, Ray Rice was wrong, what's all there to talk about, and let's go from there. What's your check?
Well, my check on that is I'm glad you brought up collective bargaining, because that's the foundation of my argument. It was collectively bargained that suspensions on domestic violence were 2 games for a first offense. That was the precedent. That's what they suspended Ray Rice under, those guidelines. They later went in and changed the guidelines. Here's where it gets murky. When they revisited the punishment, Roger Goodell himself personally called Ray Rice and told Ray Rice that the changes would not affect him, because they changed the policies and they were forward thinking, which means they were thinking of things to come, and whatever was in the past was in the past. So you can't then, after the public is outraged, you want to show them that you're outraged. So now you want to levy another sentence. You know what I mean? It's like going to court for murder. The judge gives you 20 years, and then he finds out the person that you murdered was Jack Nicholson's cousin. So then they just take you out of your cell in the middle of the night and kill you.
So hold on. that check's kind of out of bounds here. But let's first set this. Let's set the parameters for what our opinions are based on. And the reason I say that is we talking about either court of law or the court of public opinion. Court of law in this case would be the NFL, and the public opinion would be what everybody thinks about it. Let's start in the courtroom. In the courtroom, you agree that he's 100% wrong, and whatever Roger Goodell wants to do to him is correct. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, let me tell you my stance then. Again, collective bargaining has stated that whatever the commissioner says, as long as it doesn't violate the contract says he has the right to do. What he told Ray Rice on a conversation or in a meeting is immaterial. The bottom line is you're suspended, and that's the bottom line until so forth I say you're not. They collective bargain that. That's how it's going to be. Again, I understand what has happened in the court of law as it relates to federal law. And that's a section in the collective bargaining where you can appeal. And then the National Football League's Players Association has appealed that decision and went to a higher court. I think where we're trying to keep it in, and where I'm trying to keep it in, is that before it went to that court, the NFL was by all rights doing what it did. You say?
No.
Okay.
My check on that is exactly what you just said. When they went to the Court of Appeals and they got an unbiased opinion from a strong legal mind, hats off to Barbara Jones, she stated that the commissioner was arbitrary in his decisions, that he was abusing his discretion when he went back. He had no new evidence. He lied and said that he did get new evidence. It came out that he had knew the full story all along, and the only thing he was doing was responding to the public outcry, that court of public opinion that you speak of. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to save face because he had, from the beating that he had taken from sentencing Ray Rice to a 2-game suspension in the first place. He was soft. The NFL was soft on domestic violence. That's clear now. It's not Ray Rice's fault. They gave Ray Rice a 2-game suspension. You got to live with it. You can't go back and double dip and suspend him indefinitely. Then subsequent release from the Baltimore Ravens out of this new evidence that we found out was old evidence. The TMZ released that tape in September?
Not long after.
Yes.
Only 4 days after the incident. So I believe the incident was not even in August.
The incident happened February 15th.
Oh, okay, yeah, Valentine's.
And Ray Rice was arrested March 27th.
Okay.
All right. He on July 25th is when he received his 2-game suspension.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden TMC releases their tape September 8th, and Roger Goodell pretends it's his first time seeing it.
So, process. You're at the point where the process is wrong. I may be able to give you process may have not been like it should have been. Fair, put it this way. Process may not have been fair. Again, my argument simply states that Roger Goodell has the right to levy the punishment that he sees fit. What he said is 2-game suspension for domestic violence. Oh, new evidence has come. You punched your wife and basically assaulted her. There's extremes to the domestic violence. Now that I see what you've actually done, this requires a bigger penalty. And I think he decided to say, this is that penalty. Meaning, domestic violence, you guys are arguing in an elevator, and the police hear you arguing, you sound like it was a threatening tone, you're going to jail charged with domestic violence. The cop sees you, you tear her shirt off, and walk out the door, domestic violence, you're arrested. The cop comes up, he punched her in the jaw, domestic violence, you're arrested. All 3 of those things are domestic violence. One may be 2 games, one may be 1 game, one may be 6. Some things may say indefinitely until we can figure out where we should go with this. And I believe that it was just that he should be suspended indefinitely while the public opinion settles, while the public opinion may sway certain people. But ultimately, the NFL is about public opinion. And Roger Goodell knows that because his bosses say, hey, the NFL needs to be the pride and joy of America. It always has been, and it needs to continue. So don't let nobody that walks around beating up women take our stock down. Therefore, I believe that he was just in what he did, because his ultimate concern is not Ray Rice. His ultimate concern is the owners and the public, because that's where the money comes from. Last word.
Well, my check on that, Mike, will simply be, I would have no problem with the indefinite suspension if it came in the initial hearing with the commissioner. I don't like the double dipping. You know what I mean? You don't get to undo things. When you change your diet and you say I'm not eating sweets anymore, you can't go back and uneat the sweets that you already ate. You could just change from that day forward. You know what I mean? So you can't really double dip. And like I said, Barbara Jones, she looked at all the evidence. She seen everybody's testimony. She came to a conclusion, and she said just how I feel, that the commissioner's second suspension was arbitrary. It was an abuse of discretion, and she reinstated Ray Rice, and they moved on. I think that's the right decision. Now, in the future, should something like this happen again, and we're collectively bargained to the first offense to be 6 games and so on, then I think the punishment should be levied as Goodell sees fit. But he can't then go back and say, no, don't like this guy. First offense is now 10 games. Set the precedent, set the policy, proceed accordingly. That's my take.
Okay, what we're going to do here is come to a, what do we call that? An agreement to disagree. But we are close. What I'd like to do for about the next couple minutes here is go give you a chance to articulate a response to the question that we talked about, sitting from Janae Rice's seat and her family. Either or, all of them, both. But from her camp, as a woman, as a young lady, for whatever her faults are. But now she's thrust into the public eye, and she has been put, her face has been said to be put on domestic violence now. So whatever her response is to what happened to her, people are ready to judge her, whether it be the domestic violence community, whether it be her family members, whether it be her friends. But she's now being judged when, at least from what we've seen in the video and from what has been said, that she's actually the victim. So Ray Rice isn't really the victim here, even though that's what it seems when we talk about the NFL as it relates to him. He would be the defense. But in this situation, I'd like to know what you feel about Renee, if you were in her camp. So articulate a response about the Ray Rice incidents from her perspective.
Well, Janae Rice has actually done a full interview with Jemele Hill. And she holds the position that she's not the victim here. That it's an isolated incident. She was pretty much the instigator. Now, we know, how we feel about domestic violence, and there's nothing that she says that's going to change our views on what we saw on that video. I mean, it was appalling, and you never want to see that happen to a young lady. But I'm saying her stance is that she's not a victim. She doesn't want to be used as the face of domestic violence. And here's the pressure that's on her is unfair, because the domestic violence people wanted to hear from her all the way up until they didn't like what she said. I mean, and I don't understand why we do that in this country. Everybody's allowed to speak their mind unless it's different than yours. So I feel my heart goes out to Janae and her family. I can't imagine being her father. And
let me stop you, Mike. Let me jump in on what you said and have you answer this back. It's tough on Janae. She doesn't want to be the victim. She doesn't see herself as a victim. Let me ask you this then. If you speak then from the head of the Women's League or somebody that's in the business of protecting women from domestic violence and telling them that if he hits you once, he's going to hit you again. Coming from maybe somebody in that type of in that seat, that might be a dad that might say, if somebody puts their hands on you, you get out of that relationship. I don't want to hear what kind of guy he is. I want to hear you love him. Get out that relationship. So if you're coming from that point of view, how do you look at that?
That's fine. Whatever she wants to do about what happened to her is fine with me.
Right.
So it's her life. She's got to live it. It's her marriage, or it will be her divorce. She could have decided not to get married. This happened before they were married. She decided to get married to Ray Rice after this. It's her decision. It's fine. If she feels safe, then it's fine with me.
Okay.
Who am I to tell her how to feel?
Okay. My check on this is again, as it should be on this type of show, and what we're trying to do is articulate opinions and views and see how much relevance there is to them, but also see if we can get understanding why, again, that we get so frustrated when you hear certain people speak on things and it seems like they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. But sometimes you can look at people and wonder, where did they get that mentality? And my mentality was, when I heard people talk about Janae in that sense, I too thought, well, wait a minute, she can't speak for everybody in domestic violence because everybody's situation is different. But if I was sitting in the seat of an organization who was an advocate for women, I think what we have to realize is that what happened in that elevator and what we've seen, a man striking his female companion, happens all the time across the United States. And if that's the only time that Ray Rice did it, and if he'll never do it again, in some respects that's anecdotal to domestic violence. Because what we've seen is a description of domestic violence or domestic abuse in general. Specifically, we don't know what it is. Meaning, as you said, Janae says she's not a victim of domestic violence. This is a one-time incident, which she feels, articulating you correctly, she feels that she was the participant in a fight and lost.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that's what the public needs to understand. Janae sees herself as being in a fight with someone and she lost. She's still mad at that person, but it's no different than if you fight with your sister or your brother, and a brother and a sister's fight. And that's even a more accurate, to me, description of where Janae is coming from. If you're fighting with your sister, and I had been in one of those before, and you hit your sister, you're never going to be right. You shouldn't hit her. But she still loves you and you love her, and you don't expect for that to be a continuous a type of altercation you're going to have. So just to kind of summarize where we've been, the mic check as it relates to Michael Jett is the NFL needs to get their process together because it was unfair, and he's in complete agreement with the arbiter or the mediator, which was I think it was a federal judge who was the moderator. It was the person that was supposed to come and I guess it was appealed. Arbitrator in this case, and she said basically that the commissioner abused his discretion. He has the discretion to do what he want to do, but he abused it. He answered one way once, and then he changed it all around and did it again, and she says that's not allowed. My take on it is, if you put it in her court, she can do whatever she want to do, and that's what she did. While it was in Roger Goodell's court, he can do whatever he want to do, and that's because, and we're going to get to this later on a later show, we're going to talk about collective bargaining as it relates to the NFL, the NBA, and sports in general, because there's some very big differences in the major sports, and it's very interesting why they exist, and we'll unpack that in a later show. But in any event, we also delved on the side of Janae, and the mic check on that was that Michael Jett says that however Janae wants to feel, whether she feels she was abused or not, is her right. And I think by your sound, you kind of agree with her. If that's how she feels, that she was in a fight and she lost, she still's upset. It shouldn't happen again because she don't want her husband to treat her that way, obviously. But she thought she had something in it from being drunk and being out and doing all those things, that she's fine with doing whatever she wants to do. I kind of wanted to see the point of view of domestic violence advocates who come to the young lady and say, hey, you have to report this, and they refuse to because they don't want to, or they think that it's going to change because he only hit me once and he's not going to hit me again, and 2 or 3 years down the road it's a different story. What we don't want to do is cloud Janae's strength and Ray Rice's his mistake of something that, he's a good man, trying to support his wife, trying to live a life, trying to have a family. He made a mistake. We don't want to confuse what might be him never doing that again with the fact that there is a domestic abuse out there. So go ahead.
Just one thing real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up because we've been on it too long. We got a bad habit in this country of capitalizing on every situation, and we become a part of the situation, and we tell the people involved, regardless of what they think, we want to tell them how they should think. You know what I mean? The women's advocacy groups and the domestic violence people are angry with Janae Rice because they want to tell her how she should think about what's happened to her without knowing all the years in her life that got her to that point and everything she's been through since then. They need their agenda pushed. They have a face for their product, and they need her to think how they want her to think, which sometimes you become the abuser of that person all over again without realizing, but you justify it but with your cause. So I just think we need to check that also.
Good dude. Point taken. We're going to revisit this, I'm sure, whether it be in this exact case, but I think we're going to revisit it because whatever the new policy comes out, that's going to be a standing policy. There's a lot of young men that are in the crosshairs of that now. Gentlemen, the guy from the player for 49ers and also one of the players for Carolina. And so we'll figure out how this rolls out. Into our next segment, right into it, the Adrian Peterson child abuse case, also within the NFL. What's your check on it, Mike?
See, with this, I have a different stance. You know what I mean? I like Adrian Peterson. I respect him as a football player. I should say I like Adrian Peterson, the football player. Adrian Peterson, the dad, I just don't think he gets it. You know, I mean, I'm pro corporal punishment. I think it's necessary in some of our homes and in certain situations. But to beat somebody, you call it a switch. I don't think the switches I've seen can't do what that did to that child. So to me, he got beat with a stick. You know what I mean? And I just don't think that's kosher. And Adrian Peterson seems apologetic, kinda. And this ain't really a kinda type of situation. You're either in or you're out. He's still kind of playing the role of a victim, and I just don't agree with that. I'd love to see him play again, but I can't put up a fight if he never suits up again.
Good check. I agree with your check. What I want to do is I want to unpack it in what had become in this situation. Again, we didn't get in. I would say the Ray Rice situation on the surface is not a black and white issue. It's a pretty simple, domestic violence case. But unfortunately, and we're going to find this out in this show, a lot of things are race related. And the race card came into effect in this because the culture issue. Blacks beat, whites don't, which was obviously the ignorant view that was prevailed on the media, meaning that that's not true. White kids have gotten beaten. White kids don't get beat. Black kids have gotten beaten, and some black kids, their parents choose not to use corporal punishment. But what I do want to say though is, as you said, a 4-year-old child getting corporal punishment is different than a 14-year-old child getting corporal punishment. Meaning, a 4-year-old child just needs to be scared, just needs to feel hurt, physically hurt, instantly, and that's it. They understand. When I was 14 and my mom whipped me with the belt, I was happy that was the punishment now, that it wasn't you're not allowed to go outside, that you're not allowed to go here, because the belt didn't hurt me. Now, I didn't let her know that, but the belt didn't hurt me at that time.
Right.
So I was happy to get the belt, unless she said, well, when your dad gets home, because I knew that if he realized the belt, he might just start throwing fists. I was getting a little bigger, and that was a different type of corporal punishment. So I say that to say this. I believe you're right. He went too far, and I believe it should have been called attention to. What I don't believe is that if my mother and father and yours and whoever else had corporal punishment, as they say, if they did the same thing now, it would be against the law. I want to know how many of those people who now think he should not use corporal punishment think that their parents should have been put in prison and never allowed to work again. What'd you say?
Well, agree and disagree. First, I wanted to jump back to where you said that thing I got a real problem with when people bring up and they say the race card. I think that's a clever tactic derived by people who are sensitive and embarrassed about the racism and the history of racism in this country, and they try to be dismissive of those issues by saying words like the race card to actually try to make the victim feel ashamed that they think that they're being victimized because of race, as if that's just so ridiculous here. But I'm sure we'll get to that several times. But I think you have a great point. In should somebody given corporal punishment be sent to prison and never allowed to work again? I don't think it should be that deep. However, the NFL, like they say, it's not a right, it's a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you don't work in the NFL doesn't mean you can't work. And so I don't think that he should never be allowed to work again. I think if he wants to go back to work, he should go back to work. I also think if somebody wants to hire him, they should be able to hire him after whatever suspension he serves is over. I think the commissioner actually got this one right in that he didn't make an arbitrary decision and suspend Adrian Peterson. He put him on the exempt list. He was still getting paid until his case was finalized, and then he took action. Now, if the punishment is too severe, again, there's an appeal process. We'll find out what happens. But I think the procedure was better, and I think it became better because of the Ray Rice issue. You know what I mean? He realized that you can't punish somebody a second time because you got it wrong the first time. So in this instance, I think the commissioner got it right.
Okay. Again, we based to summarize. Can't beat your kids. You can't beat them to the point like you said. At least what we've seen, you bringing blood out of them. It doesn't look like a switch. It looks like a stick. Now, I did not see. Gotta confess, I did not see the pictures, but I hear tell of them and how they look. So, and I believe that's the correct way. My take on it is simply, again, what happened with Adrian Peterson goes beyond the extent of the corporal punishment, because the answer from the commissioner, his letter to Adrian Peterson telling him that he was indefinitely suspended, I thought was way out of line, because now it sounded like he was saying there's no corporate punishment allowed. And again, he seemed like he was checking Adrian Peterson on his fatherhood because of the use of corporal punishment, because he stated, it sounds like that you might use corporal punishment again. And again, that's why I made the statement. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek when I said never work again, because that's kind of what he's doing. I would assume that if Roger Goodell employed everybody in the United States, that he would not hire Adrian Peterson because of what he did. And so my point is, as you take that and look at that picture and paint a broad brush like he did, I thought he was completely out of line, because again, if you've had corporal punishment when you raised that was used when you were raised, or if you use that in raising your kids, never did you ever think that just by using corporal punishment you would go to jail, and then also your employer would tell you can't even work anymore.
Right.
You know. So I believe we're both on line with that. There's a couple other ways we could come from. I want to come from the standpoint of, let's just get into it very briefly, the standpoint of corporal punishment or not. And what I want to say is there's other ways to discipline your child other than corporal punishment. Why not? Let's outlaw corporal punishment altogether. Let it be known, educate the public, and go from there, you say.
I don't think we can move in that direction. I mean, I think even where this happened in the state of Texas, corporal punishment is legal. There's just limits. You know what I mean? And I think Adrian Peterson crossed those limits and left corporal punishment and went into abuse.
Okay.
And but I think we're a country and we're a culture and we're a society that needs corporal punishment, because then where do we go from there? I mean, do we take away the death penalty? Do we take away life sentences? Because our prison system is for rehabilitation. So how long does it take to rehabilitate a person? I mean, who's to decide when a person is beyond rehabilitation and he has to stay in prison for the rest of his life or be killed in prison? When we get into the limitations on punishment, it's real shaky ground, and everybody has an opinion about it, and everything would be better if none of these things happened. But where would we live then?
I agree. Well said. And we're going to leave that in summary to say that we both agree to some extent with the commissioner on his treatment of Adrian Peterson. We do not like, at least I do not like, the way that he had to add the letter to the punishment, meaning his commentary on the type of father that Adrian Peterson may or may not be. We don't like that part of it, but ultimately we know this is a dicey situation, and we're gonna stop there because I'm sure we will revisit it. Both these situations within the NFL is going to come up again, and we will leave them on the table unfinished for now and go from there. So now we want to jump up to some of the hot topics, so to speak, and we're going to start off obviously with Ferguson. The Ferguson situation to me, as a lot of things that get a lot of media attention, delves into so many separate issues, but is always clouded by people's articulation of one of those issues being used as their overall view of the whole situation. That was a lot to simply say, should he have been shot? Did he attack the officer? Should he have been indicted? Should he have been immediately arrested? Should there have been rioting? And what should the response have been politically, whether it be locally or nationally, from either the president or from the state governor or from, again, the mayor of that city, as it relates to how everything was handled? Tackle that anywhere you want to. What do you think about the Ferguson situation?
Well, I mean, it's an appalling situation. I mean, I just don't understand why, when met with physical force, police officers retaliate with deadly force. If there was even physical force involved, I'm only going by the reported stories. I don't know. I'm not sure if Mike Brown was the aggressor towards the officer or not. But as the report goes, he was. So I'll concede that. Now you shoot 2 times through the door. Mike Brown starts to run away. Pause. Why isn't the story over? Right there, when you fire 2 shots and Mike Brown starts to run away, why isn't the story over? There's 10 more shots fired at somebody that's running away. Now the officer's story is that Mike Brown turned back towards him. Who runs from the first 2 shots only to turn around and face the following 10? And he's hit. The police officer said, all I could see was his head. So that's what I shot. If all you could see was his head, how was he coming towards you? How did you feel threatened if all you could see was his head? It's just, the story is very inconsistent. It stinks of racism. Your race card. That you're appalled that we would even think that something could happen because we're race. Well, let's see. What will make me think that something could happen because of my race? Where would I get something ridiculous like that from? But maybe it's somewhere I heard that they said, well, we're about to vote, and I get in line and I want to vote, and they say, no, you can't vote, and I say, why? And they say, because you're black.
That might be one reason.
And then they say, well, you live at my house now, and when the sun comes up, you have to be in the field picking cotton, and you have to do it until the sun goes down. If you're not doing it fast enough or well enough, we're going to beat you. If you don't like us beating you, we're going to hang you. We're going to force you to breed. We're going to sell your kids.
Why?
Because you're black.
Oh.
We got professional baseball. We got all the best players. You seem like you're better than our players, but you can't play because you're black. So, in a country where these things have been thrown, I mean, you have to sit in the back of the bus because you're black. You can't go to this school because you're black. Like, You created the race card. In fact, there was a time the whole deck was race cards. There was nothing but race cards. Every single thing, every single aspect of society and life was directly linked to race. From where you live, to where you ride, all the way to what restroom you use and what fountain you could drink out of. This country was built literally on racism. First against the red man, then against the black man. So when you say, oh, you're using the race card, to me it's silly, and that is offensive.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try somehow to debate what you just said for the purposes of the structure of this show. It's intended to see other people's views and analyze why they may think how they think. It's also to see where other people are sitting at to see how they view something. So I'll try to take it in this, for lack of a better word, hypothesis, or better stated, fictional element that this guy shot him legally. Okay. The little bit of law enforcement that I know, as the officer said, I felt that my life was threatened. Again, somebody that is totally subjective, and in our court system, we already know that the police officer has all the benefit of the doubt. Second of all, we know that what you just articulated is that if you're black, you have a lot less of the benefit of the doubt. So trying to figure out if that's a lie is going to be, in a court of law, is just futile. We've seen that over and over again. My thought is going to lead to this, is that now what? What can be done to prevent that? Meaning, the officer said he felt for his life. The only way for him not to feel fear for his life is not to attack him, to not to get in a situation that we attack. Is there anything we can do to stop that? If you understand what I'm saying? Meaning, people saying they shouldn't have rioted. But what do you do when you're frustrated? What do you do when you get treated, you get policed when there's no policing necessary? What do you do when everybody else who does the same thing you do go to jail, possibly, if what you did is what you did? Because usually people get arrested for that. Attacking an officer, you get arrested and you go to court. But when the answer now is to shoot and kill, what do black people do who are on these streets, who are in these situations, who's had this happen, when they see something, when they see a chance for the justice system to support them, not support them? What do we do then? What do you think? Is there an answer for something like that?
I mean, I hope there's an answer. I just don't know what it is. I mean, situations like this just show you how volatile our existence is in this country. And we riot not to instill fear, but just out of sense of hopelessness, that like, what is it that can be done to us that we're viewed as the victim? Like, what is it you can do to us that you'll see us as a victim? Because you sell us, you beat us, you hang us, you shoot us, you blow us up in churches,
put diseases in us.
You give us disproportionate sentences, you unfair prosecution and persecution. What is it that you can see happen to me that will make you feel like I'm the victim and not just using the race card?
There's race card again. One of the things, just to give you I've heard that race card over and over again, and as you said, sometimes the deck is full of race cards, but I've always said that the truth trumps any card. The truth card trumps the race card. So at the point that you think I'm using the race card, the truth will trump that card. The truth just ends up being that it's a race issue, and it's never being played because they never had it, because they've already did what they've been accused of doing. And when I say they, I mean those who resort to racism and racial practices. Deep issue. We don't have enough time to tackle it all tonight. I want to move on to the last issue and just say in summary that Ferguson is an ongoing situation also. We need to look at it. We need to learn. Again, I haven't watched everything, all the testimony from the grand jury. I haven't had a chance to look at that to really articulate a good thought on why he did not get indicted. Other than, as you said, clearly, this is a white officer, a black male youth, and at the point that he did fear for his life, he could have simply feared for his life just because the gentleman was black. Again, the articulation of why you used force, why you shot 12 times, why he was running away, why you told the lies that you told, because that's basically what we understand. That it doesn't even begin to say that the story he told was accurate and probably what happened. But again, it's an issue that we got to tackle in future shows. Let's skip to the last one. Go to the last one, and it kind of leads right into this. This show is going to has a lot of hot topics. But one of the funny one that came up is the attack on the first daughters. And what I thought when I heard it is that it's par for the course. It was coming. The father's been attacked unfairly. The wife has been attacked unfairly. The mother-in-law was attacked unfairly. And so the what's left of the family is the two little daughters. And of course, somebody had to attack them. And it was a Republican staffer for a congressman or governor or something of Tennessee. She was also on the National Republican Party's, worked for them in some manner. She was a staffer. But in any event, she basically called the young ladies classless, and that she'd expect no more from them because her father doesn't respect the company, nor does respect the country, nor does her father. But this is the question. What do you think of the disrespect that President Obama has received in the White House? What do you think about that?
Well, it's no surprise to me. I mean, it's par for the course. It's sad, and I mean, it comes from so-called patriots. You know what I mean? That to me are evil at the core, because your hatred for black people is so strong that it actually dominates your patriotism to the point that you're willing to disrespect the most prominent position in our country. And you can't see it. You can't look past your hatred of the color of his skin to see the position and respect the position. And that's what I see sad about the unfair criticisms. I mean, some are fair. I mean, I've never seen a perfect president, but I've also never seen a president that had to endure so much and try to overcome so many obstacles to do things to help better our country. Even when we know his policies are the best policies, and maybe some aren't, but even the ones that we know are, we're still against it because it's him, and that's ridiculous.
And again, I didn't think that you would say anything other than that, but it is something I wanted to look at, because what I don't think we do well enough is we don't speak in a way that allows us to articulate what we're trying to say. Meaning, all we have to do is look at the past presidents and see how they were treated compared to this president. All we'll have to do is look at how this president is treated, and in the future look at the presidents and see how they are treated, to see the difference and what was the difference on why they were treated. And we know that that's black. If you're sitting and you're a black person in the United States since President Obama's been in office, you can see it. And as well can those if you're not a black person sitting in there. But what's interesting is because we had this topic coming up, I went in and tried to do some research on it, and everybody goes to Google, and I Googled disrespect of the president, and right away it came up, disrespect of President Obama. And I went to this one page. It's called Politic 365 is the web page, and they had an article in here called "The 10 Worst Moments of Disrespect Towards President Obama." That's enough to me. That's enough that somebody decided to get a web page that was all about, or print an article that was all about the different ways. Then they said words like the top 10, meaning there was others. Now, there should not be more than 2, because after the response to the first one, it should have been brought to the attention of everyone. And after the second time, something should have been done to somebody to let people know that you don't disrespect an American president. At least that's what I thought. Now we find out that that's okay. What I need to figure out is going future, and what we need to understand is in the future, it's okay to disrespect the president, his wife, and his kids. And because that's the case, because we have precedent set. But anyway, I looked at some of the top 10. A couple of them that brought to mind is the big picture of the governor from Arizona, the young lady that decided to walk up to the president and put her finger in his face. The biggest telling part of this is her response to why she did it. And her response was that she felt threatened by the president. Threatened to do what? Like, what did you think the president of the United States was going to do to you, the governor of Arizona, when he gets out of his plane and he walks up to you and you start screaming at him? Like, somebody needed to ask her to continue. You were threatened about what was going to happen. Did she think he's going to put her hands? Did she think he's Ray Rice?
Oh.
No pun intended. But
not only that.
Like, shit.
What was her finger in his face going to do about the threat? Like, since that's why she did it, what was her finger in his face going to do about whatever she felt threatened by?
Yeah. What I'm hoping is that, and I'm sure it will happen, being that we're going to be on Uncle Wu's page, somebody can answer this question. Somebody of importance, whether it's in the White House, in the Capitol, CIA, the Homeland. Somebody's going to see this. Please answer this question. Ask that woman, or in the governor's office.